Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you are watching The Joys of Living Great. This is our first show for 2026. This is the January, the kickoff, the event. And this year we are so excited about inclusion. And the reason we're excited about inclusion is because do you all realize that joy belongs to everyone? Joy is a choice that everybody has. You can choose to be joyful or you can choose not to be. And whatever you speak, whatever you say, whatever you think, that's what you are. And we are joyful. Thank you so very, very much for joining us. This show is going to kick off the fact that here at the Joys of Living Great, we are very, very interested in inclusion. And that means that not everyone will look like us, not everyone will be in our generation. Not everyone who believes in the joy of the Lord has to be where we are. They may not be in our community. You may not be next door. You may be somewhere across the globe, but that's okay because we are the Joys of Living Great. And our show today is to just sort of talk about and have a discussion about the differences in what different generations know about God, how we've learned about God, how we understand and what we feel about God. Are there any differences? There's only one God for everybody. But are there any differences in the way we feel, the way we worship, the way we've learned? I'm sure that there are, and we all felt that this would be a great, great way to kick off the year talking about some of those generational differences that we are aware of. Today, we have a very special guest, Pastor Tarnesha McCrary. And we're so happy to have her here. You're going to hear a lot from her. But let me start by asking if our Joys of Living Great hostesses have any comments that they want to lead us off with.
Well, I'm just happy that you're here again, once again, for the new year. Great to see you again. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just want to say that I'm grateful to be here with you all this week, this month, this year. Looking forward to great things and definitely kicking it off, reaching out to other generations and other folks to come on board and get on this Joys of Living Great train. I think it's a wonderful thing. And Pastor McCrary, welcome. So glad to see you and meet you. Looking forward to what you have to bring today.
Thank you. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Pastor McCrary has been with us before. So this is not her first time on the Joys of Living Great, but we're going to learn from her because as our audience can see, and as you can hear, the three of us are probably all in the same generation, but Pastor McCrary is not. So let's start, Pastor McCrary, if you will tell us which other generations are you? Are you millennial?
Yeah. No, so I am Gen X. Yeah, Gen X generation. Yep. Like right on.
Okay.
Yeah, 1979. So, yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Okay, that really can give us some insight because we're maybe, well, I am, I don't know about anybody else. I'm probably two or
Mhm.
three generations um above
Well,
you
I'm
or
a baby
behind
boomer.
you or ahead of you or wherever.
Mhm. I think
So,
just one, maybe. Babe, are you
One,
baby
baby
boom?
boomers,
I'm a
yeah.
baby boomer.
Gen
I'm
baby
a
X
baby boomer.
boomer.
and
Yeah.
Gen X.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just one.
So,
Good.
okay, I was thinking, okay.
Yeah, I'm right on the, I think millennials
Yeah.
start
You're just at
81.
81 and up to
Mm-hmm.
96. Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I'm right on that cuff.
Yeah, yeah,
All
you
right.
are.
Okay. So now, as baby boomers, we often and we share all the time how we were raised in the church and what we were taught and how we were forced to go to church when we didn't want to, but we didn't understand why. But we went, and of course, there are lessons that we learned during that time. So
Mhm.
tell us about how it is that how did you first learn about God? Was this an early experience, like a childhood experience? Tell us a little bit about how that worked for you.
Yeah, childhood for sure. My grandmother, oh my goodness, every time I would go to her house, I was her first granddaughter, so she had me probably more than my mom did a lot of the times. And she would take me to church with her. She was Southern Baptist, and she was just all about her father's business. And so she was the true Proverbs 31 woman, and she just believed in going to church, but more importantly, about how to have a relationship with God. And so as a young girl, I just remember my weekends being spent in church with her. So that's when I first learned about God.
That's probably how we all, and many of us had parents or grandparents
Mhm.
who um, felt that going to church, and then as I think back on my great grandparents, and when we went to live with my great grandmother or be with my great grandmother during the summer, yes, it was church, and sometimes we had to walk because it was in the country. It was
Mm.
long ways. But Sundays was definitely a day that we spent all day. I mean, all day at church. And it's just come to me why that was so important. Because during those times, people had to work in the fields. They were either farmers or some in some kind of business like that, their own. They grew their own food, and there just weren't jobs. There were no, the industrial age hadn't started. And so getting together at church and everybody bringing dishes, and they ate between the morning service and the afternoon service together, that was the only socialization that they had.
I,
Because if you think about it, if you're working, if you're getting up 4 o'clock in the morning to plow the fields and plant or to harvest, and then you finish when sundown and you feed all the animals and you took them away to get them ready for the next day, when do you have time to go visit and socialize with somebody? Was that anybody's experience?
No, not mine. I grew up in New York City, so no, that wasn't my experience. I was taken to the South on holiday, over summer vacation, and we did have to do that. I was I didn't like it because I was a city person. So, but we did have to get up very early, and I don't think I was really made to go to church. I was just brought up because they wanted us to have that foundation. So that's what I grew up with. I mean, my parents said church, we got ready, and that was what that was. I mean, because no one had a chance to stay in the house. They had to go with the parents. Yeah. Now, my father, now again, you mentioned the Proverbs 31 woman. Um, my mother I know, was a Proverbs 31 woman because my father did not really like to go to church. He really didn't. So it was only on the times that, when they go Easter, Christmas, all of those holidays, he was there, probably for a homegoing. But that was the reason. But my mother, every time Sunday school, BTU, and choir rehearsal, definitely choir rehearsal, choir, all of that, just that's instilled in me. Yes, from childhood, from a very young age.
And I think more so for my family as well, Brenda. We weren't in the fields that I can remember. Uh, my upbringing was, yes, we went to church, and church was the focus of the whole day on Sunday. It was also Wednesday night Bible study and prayer. And Friday night was the youth night, and all the youth got together and they provided an activity for us. Mostly we went roller skating. So we, were products of the Baltimore City, but we lived in Baltimore County. So we didn't have that rural kind of feeling to our existence. But my grandfather, I recall, was a pastor. And it was like a group of them came up from the South and they settled in this one area. I mean, it was like maybe 12 different families. And they each had a piece of land and they worked the land and they had big families. I mean, they had a bunch of kids. So they had their gardens, they had their chickens, and they had to gather the eggs, and they had pigs. So they had that environment, but church was where everybody got together. Everybody knew everybody. And if somebody needed something, everybody helped provide for that family. So church was the hub. It was the existence for everybody in that area at that time. No ifs, ands, and buts. If you didn't want to go, shame on you, because you're going, go get the switch. You don't want to go get the switch. We'll have a discussion. So it was like that. It was something you did, and you did it because all of your friends were there. Mm-hmm. Everybody who you went to school with was there. So you had time to catch up on things and even act up sometimes when the parents weren't looking. But it was fun. It was fun, and all the kids sang on the choir. So yeah, everybody had to sing on the choir, whether you sang or not. And everybody enjoyed Christmas because we all had our Christmas pageant. Everybody had a poem, and Easter was the same way. You had your Easter thing going on. So church was the hub. It was the center.
Really, starting way, way back to my great-great-grandmother, and the fact that was their way of actually socializing, which was the point that I thought of. As a Gen Xer, is this how you actually socialize now? Do you use church as a hub for socialization, or do you see the church as something different, Pastor?
Yeah, when I'm listening to you ladies describe what it was like going to church, especially growing up, it just sounds like community. There was so much community that was happening. And I feel like through the generations, the way community is, it looks different, right? I know for being a Gen X, we still do thrive off community. I have to say, I think we're one of the most unique generations because we know how to flow from that baby boomer, which is our parents, or the silent generation, could be grandparents, but then also know how to tap into millennials and even Gen Z because we're like right in that middle phase. And especially for me, because I was born in 79, so I can flow as a millennial as well as a Gen X. But I think Gen Xers do want community because that's the way we were raised. We desire that. But our children, like I have three boys, three adult sons now, hard to believe, but three adult sons, and their community looks different. They don't think of the idea of, oh, when I'm out and about, say hello to someone, talk, exchange phone numbers. It's just so different. They do everything on socials, even around church. It's kind of how they navigate. When they're in church with us, they don't try to like get into a group or, unless we say, hey, why don't you join this group or start this group, then they'll think about it, but it's so much, I feel like under the radar because it's like, oh, let me get your social handle, or, if you're into games, let me get your gaming login. And then that's how they connect. And from there, they start to build a relationship. So it just looks very different. And this is in church and out of church. I see it on both realms, whether it's in the secular or in church. It's just the way they communicate now. It's very different. But I'm blessed because I'm able, like I said, as a Gen X to kind of flow. I get it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of the way we're going. How can we get creative as the body of Christ to keep them engaged and to ensure there's some type of community happening on some sort of level, right? So that they can have community because it's very important.
And you've hit on a very good point, being a Gen Xer, because you are in the middle. So you can understand what we're saying is baby boomers. And because you have children, you understand the Gen X's and the Gen Z's.
Mhm.
So you are able to communicate up and down the spectrum of the generations and understand them. And that's important. I think
Mhm.
one of the things that we as baby boomers may have unsuspectedly done.
Mhm.
We're so far from the Gen X's and the Gen Z's
Millennials, yeah.
that we're kind of close to the millennials, but the generations after that, we're so far from them. We don't understand them. We don't understand, why do they always have to be on their phone? You know, we're accustomed to talking. Why is it that they have to be on their phone? But we know some of them are, 20, 19-year-old millionaires because they're on their phone. Uh, and that's just the way it is for them. So how can we, and this is a question for anyone, how do you think we might be able to bridge that gap to have them think more of the personal community?
That's a really good
Good
question.
question.
I would definitely say listen, right?
Yeah.
Listen to understand and not necessarily be understood, but come into their world because it is
Mhm.
different. Gen X's are the last generation that were born without having a phone at 2 or 3 years old.
Mm.
It's, we know how to, if everything's shut down, we still know how to do things manually. But
Mm.
yet we prefer to have technology.
Mhm.
And then from there, millennials and especially the Gen Zs, I mean, it's all about technology. And so coming into their world and asking, what does that look like? Because we don't know, right? I don't know what it's like to have been born in a technology world. I mean, when technology came as I got older, but to be born into that shapes your whole foundation. It's kind of who they are and where they flow from. And so I think tapping into that and asking the right questions to try to understand their world has definitely been beneficial. I can just give one example that happened last night. My husband got a call. This is insane, y'all. We were literally getting ready to go on. We're in our week of consecration, and my husband was preparing to pray and all that kind of stuff. And he got a call, and it was one of our good friends, and it sounded like it was one of our good friends. It was a voice, and the person was frantic, like, oh my gosh, we're in Mexico, we've been scammed, we've lost everything, can you please send us something, we didn't know who to call, all of that. This was on a voice. And my son, who is 19, because we were like, oh my God, what do we do? And they even hung up and text and said, Zell us, like this is information. And I thought, well, how are we going to Zell them if they've been scamming? My son was like, no, do not send anything. That's a scam.
Mhm.
The whole
Exactly.
thing is a scam. It's
Yep,
a
Absolutely.
hoax. It's all
yep.
of that. And so
Absolutely.
it's a blessing in a lot of ways to have a Gen Z who's so tech savvy, especially when it comes to my husband, because he has such a heart to want to help people and immediately rush to their need. And if it hadn't have been for our son, because I was still upstairs working in the office, that intercepting and like, Dad, don't send anything. The whole thing is probably host. And I called the wife and I'm like, all right, what's going on? Are you guys okay? And she was like, it's a scam, total scam. So it was that kind of thing. Thank God for them and knowing the signs, especially like for someone like my husband who's just like, I thought it was my friend. He needed my help. I was getting ready to sell him some money. So it's those kinds of things that are beneficial and they work to our benefit. So to answer your question, for me, I would definitely say it's like listening to learn more about what it is to be a Gen Z and what it's like to be in that world of technology. And then also how it can help us and the generations up, you know, like being
Mhm.
a Gen X or baby boomer or even the silent generation, how they can help us. So as our world
Definitely.
continues to navigate in this technology.
Mhm.
So
I can think of an example of how just a difference in the way we might have handled keeping our children's attention. For my kids at 3 years old, they would have been content with getting a coloring book, some crayons, and I say, go sit down with your coloring book.
yeah.
Now, my granddaughter at 3 years old was already grabbing her mother's phone and finding what she wanted to watch on that phone
Mhm.
and actually looking at a video.
Yeah.
So that's the difference in how technology actually has played such a role in the different generations. Um, how do you think? I want one other point I want to talk about, if you don't mind. Someone mentioned men going to church. And I think unless the man in your life was either the pastor, the assistant pastor, or like my daddy, the deacon, they weren't going unless they had those special occasions. But they were always there. And it did not mean that they didn't pray, but they were not as willing to go as often as the wife, the Proverbs 31 woman. Has that changed now in the different generations?
Well, I can answer. I think it has. The church that I attend, there are married couples there. There are the ratio of men almost to women, almost. Yeah, and the children, they come with their children. But I think as time changes, we have to change. Well, we obviously do. But I believe so. I believe that more men are going to church now or attending church now. That's just my opinion. I don't know in the other churches, but I guess if they did a survey or a poll, they probably could find that out. Some research.
I don't know if it differs among denominations, but my church is
Mhm.
non-denominational, and there is a very strong men's ministry. The men actually pride themselves. And you ladies will all know that every church that you can think of has a women's ministry,
Oh,
always has a women's ministry. But our church has a very strong men's ministry,
yeah.
and their retreat every year is, I mean, they come back so pumped and they all got on the same t-shirts, and I mean, they're just really into it. And what really surprises me is it's all different ages because they're from 18 up. I think
Mhm.
the oldest deacon is like 93, and he's right there with his t-shirt too. But then there are the 18-year-olds who serve on youth Sunday as ushers, they're in the choir, and they all are a very strong part of the men's ministry. I wanted to mention that because I feel that the generations are changing, and it might just be because of the way that the messages about God and about Jesus is being delivered. It's different from the old Southern Baptists.
Mhm.
It's different from the old is it the I don't know if it's the apostolic or where you have to go and sit on the bench and you have to call Jesus's name until you can't, till you foam at the mouth. That's the, the when people
Apostle.
aren't doing that and they can understand. And I also think it's because in our churches today, we have more teaching
Yeah,
than preaching.
exactly. Absolutely. And it's more
Yeah.
relevant, I think, to the person. It's more personable, and I believe it's more relevant, the teaching and the Bible,
Yeah.
making the Bible come alive and apply it to
Yes.
your life. Yeah, that's what I think it's happening.
Television has done a lot for that too, because it's education.
Yeah.
And some people who attend my church for the first time, they will say, well, I watched the service for a year or more, and I finally decided I need to come and see for myself. So I think the message about the Bible, God, Jesus, and what we need to know has changed somewhat. So more of our younger people are really understanding what that connection should be. So my next question is, do you feel like there are any significant differences in the way we worship, the way our parents worship, the way our grandparents, or the way our children worship?
I would definitely say there are differences, but it's all worship, right? Because I feel like worship is a personal experience and we do it
Mhm.
corporately. But worship is also a way that we live, right? And so from Salon's generation, they may not even know how to read the Bible, but they knew how to pray. You know, they knew how to pray. Then you kind of go down from there in the different generations, and you can see where worship has evolved, if you will, just how it is done corporately. But I think once we teach people what worship truly is, then they understand, hey, it's a personal thing. It's how, yes, I'm going to come to church. I'm going to lift my hands. I'm going to praise and worship God, but it's also in my giving. It's also in my living. It's I'm a worshiper. It's not something I do. It's who I am, if that makes sense. And so helping each generation understand that, and then they kind of cultivate that, how they feel like the Lord is leading them, I think is very powerful. Very, very powerful because you can see it differently. Like with my kids, I see the way they worship God is different than the way my husband and I worship, but it's all worship and it's beautiful to see. So,
And then you probably worship differently from your parents or grandparents.
yes, and somewhat similar though. I don't see for me that it's a huge difference because like for my parents, my mom didn't go to church until I was about 16. She got saved. So like I said, my time at church was with my grandmother. My grandmother was more of, she wasn't a shout type of person and, running around the church or any of that kind of stuff. She was more quiet in her worship. She would cry, she would, kind of weep, that kind of thing, but she wasn't loud. I'm somewhat the same way too. I can,
Yeah.
depending on how I'm feeling, if I'm worshiping God, I may be loud and hallelujah. And other times I'm just sitting in his presence and I'm weeping about the goodness of God. So I don't really see a huge difference between the way my mom or even my grandmother worship. But I definitely see it in my kids. So
Mhm.
You ladies.
It's beautiful.
I
Right.
think I have a millennial who is very much uh, in tune with God, but it's very personal. It's not so much the church or corporate worship, but she will tell me that her time with the Lord is very personal to her. And it's not something that can be, taught from a pulpit. Yes, she gets lessons from the pastor and her uh, small group leader. That kind of coming together is beneficial. But to her, it's a personal relationship, and no one can define that for her. And I find that hard to grasp because I'm like the rest of the baby boomers community is so ingrained in us. Like, you have to be social. You have to, as part of your relationship with Christ, he wants us to be social and committed to one another and all about your brother's business, to be joyful with them, to be in sorrow with them. But for her, she loves the Lord. I don't doubt that. She's a good writer and everything else, but it's a personal thing. She won't go out with the women and do, ministry, so to speak. But still, her relationship with Christ is important to her. And I find that with our other younger people, as well as as I interact with some of them, that's what it is. It's not my mama's religion. It's not my grandmom's thing that she had going on, but it's my own personal relationship that is important.
That's important. Yeah, it is because it's a personal thing, as you said before. You're not to be scrutinized by the body of Christ, with the cliques of whatever what you have. But it is a personal relationship, and God is the judger. He's judging your heart. He looks at the heart, your heart posture. So many people are out there judging. Well, they don't worship like this, or they don't do like that. They don't have to dance. And so that's not me. And I'm a baby boomer, but I don't follow a norm. As long as I know I have a relationship, I do go to church every Sunday, but I'm not one to be into some of the cliques that may be there. We are members, not cliques. We're called to complete and not compete. So that's basically what I believe. As a baby boomer, my whole mindset is different. So I love everybody because Christ calls me to do that. But what I do is I don't follow a lot of the cliques, and I've always been that way as a child. And here I am now the same way. But it's a personal thing. And so people may scrutinize you and say, well, oh, they don't worship like that. And that's not it, because God is no respecter of persons. So I don't even know where we come in with that way of thinking. So, but I don't think that way. I really don't. And I'm glad that I don't. It is a mindset. You have to take on that mindset that it's a personal relationship with God, and He knows your heart. So, and yeah.
Yeah, I think we put too many rules on folks.
Too many rules.
You have to belong to this group, or you have to be involved in this, or you're not really, showing that you're in Christ. You have to do things that Christ does, but it's not a doing kind of thing. It's a personal relationship kind of thing that helps people grow. And sometimes it can be very intimidating to our young people if they feel like they're not accepted because they're not into the clique, or they're not into this group or that group. So she tended to, I know she had been to several churches, and the church that she is in now has given her that ability to just worship God in her way. Not in a false way, but in a very personal and real way for her. Given her that freedom to do that, not pressure her to be involved in this, or you have to do that, to show. No, you don't have to show anybody anything. The only one you need to please is Christ. So, and that's how I find that they live their life.
I only would say that my personal relationship with God improved. I became closer to the Spirit when I realized that I wasn't in one of those churches where you go every Sunday to see, and you're looking around to see who has on the best hat, who has the hat and the dress and the shoes that match, and who has, what she got on this day, and have I seen that before? And when I stopped doing that and realized that, no, that's not why you came to church. You came to church to worship God. I can sit in the pew and have my own personal service right there, and never look around at who's sitting beside me or behind me, or who's got on what up in front of me. I'm just not focused on that at all. And do you know, for me, this is my personal story. I can tell you every Sunday I leave church with a message. I understand why I'm there. And I even said to one of my friends that attends church, we were out to dinner and the conversation came up. And that's another thing. I don't talk about people. And I don't like to talk about people. But she mentioned, so and so doesn't speak when she's in church. And I said, wait a minute, let me just tell you, we're not going to have that conversation. I don't go to church to speak to everybody.
Mhm.
I go to church to worship God. So if I don't catch you to say hello, have a blessed week, walk in your blessings this week, it's okay. If you don't catch me to say that, that's okay too. When I finish, when church is over, and our benediction, of course, is a little different. When the pastor says the word has been spoken and we repeat, and the word has been received, I head out because I have gotten what I went there for. And I now understand that. So I look forward to going. Before in other churches, I have definitely been there and have tried to dress the part to see who has on the best outfit. That's not what it's about.
No,
So
not
where does
anymore.
that come from, though? I mean, it's like I'm sure it's cultural, but where? Because
It
that's
is.
mind-boggling.
It's
Where does
cultural.
that
Yeah.
come from? Yeah, it's a culture. The red
Mm-mm.
bottoms and all that. I mean, you
Nope,
know?
not anymore. And I'm so glad, because
Yeah,
that was a barrier. I mean, and I
yeah,
know, you know, being in church as long as we have, we've seen how things have changed for the better.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
you see the holy jeans. Okay, I wouldn't. That's not me. That's not paying God homage the way
Some of
I
you
think
are
it should
though. Yeah,
be. But
mhm,
if that's all you got,
yeah,
if your wardrobe consists of those kind of clothes and that's what you wear,
right.
come as you are.
Some as
Okay.
you are.
And I'm
Hmm.
not judging you. As long as you don't judge me, we're good. But
Right.
I want to encourage you to do your
Yeah,
best for the
I
yeah.
Lord,
mean,
to give
Jesus
him the
said, come
honor
as you
that he's
are,
due.
right?
Some as you are.
He
Yeah,
said, come as you
Yeah.
are. That
yeah.
reminds me of a story that Joel Osteen tells about the fact that the gentleman went to the church and the pastor pulled him aside when he first came and said, you really need to dress a little differently to come to church. And the gentleman didn't say anything. He came back the next Sunday and he was dressed the same way. And the pastor says, didn't I tell you um, that you should not dress that way to come to church?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
you're coming here looking for God. And he so you gotta wear decent clothes. You gotta wear a suit and all of this, right? So finally this man says to him, but I've been coming here and God told me he wasn't here.
exactly. That's
Wow.
Because
right. I've heard that
I
before.
don't see
Exactly.
God in here.
Not
Oh
So
my
there.
gosh.
uh,
Go figure.
I mean, he's not there because of the culture of that particular organization. They felt like
Yep.
Hmm.
you got to be dressed a certain way. They couldn't accept the gentleman for the way that he was. He he was looking for God. He wasn't looking for that pastor.
No, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. We
And
have to
so
get
unfortunately there are still some churches like that.
some
But I
churches.
thank God it's because the our generation is moving along and the Gen Xers and the millennials are coming in and they're bringing that kind of attitude, that kind of realism
Yeah.
into the church.
Mm,
It's not about what you look like when you come in the door.
exactly.
It's how you look, how you feel, how you
Hmm.
react when you go out the door. You have to be
Exactly.
changed. And if my wearing what I wear is going to be a distraction to you, I'll pray for you, okay?
Mm,
Because your focus is Christ. Your focus is
yeah.
the message of Jesus Christ. And I think that's what our young people are looking for. They're looking for the
They are.
real deal,
Yes, they
not the
are.
fake
Absolutely.
and phony.
Yes,
They're
they
That's
looking
are.
right.
for the real deal. And when
Yeah.
they see
All
the
right.
real, they respond to it.
That's
And
But it
right.
has
that's
to
what
be
we
taught.
want to project.
Yep.
Has to be taught though. It has to be taught. Me as a retired teacher, I'm all about education. So and learning and evolving because it has to be taught. And if you can't, and if they're not being taught, they're not. When you know better, you do better. I mean,
Mm-hmm,
that's just
mm-hmm,
it. Hopefully, you do, but
right.
they're not being taught. Some people are not being taught. So it does go down from generation to generation. I mean, it's that
Yeah.
village. It takes that village, and we have to teach each other. It's teach your children. The Bible tells you, train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he won't depart from it. So, I mean, what are we missing? There's something we're missing, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I was taught a long time ago, my husband in the pulpit, he would say, keep the main thing the main thing. Don't go off on these tangents. Jesus is the main thing. Keep him in front. If you keep him in front, then they'll get it. They will relate it to what they're used to. They're related to the kind of music that they listen to. Well, is that all about Christ? No, something's off on that. I can't listen to that. They keep the main thing. Your focus on Jesus Christ, and they will get it. But this other fake and phony stuff, the stuff that really doesn't matter, they see right through it. Exactly. And they don't want to have anything to do with it.
Oh,
so it's not what Jesus wants us to show either. So, Pastor McCrary, Lady T, tell us about your church, where it's located, how we can get in touch with you. And I know that you do have media outlets. So because I've seen the service a few times. So tell us all about you, where we can get in touch with you so that everybody can join in and watch and support you and your husband.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we are in upstate region of South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. Oh, such an amazing area, amazing place. And we pastor a church here, Greater Gathering Church. We meet every Sunday. We're a new church plant. We'll be a year in March. Hard to believe that, but we'll be a year old in March. And thank you. Really appreciate that. God is just doing some wonderful things. We actually meet in, believe it or not, when you all are talking about how everything is evolving and what it looks like as far as coming to church, our setup is completely different. We actually meet in a coffee shop, and we have a saxophonist and a worship leader, a worshiper psalmist that comes. And when they play and together, it sounds like heaven. It's something beautiful. And we get some of the newer generation that come in. They're like, yeah, I really don't want to be in the traditional church, but I know the importance of getting the word and being in community with my brother and sister in Christ. And it's just an opportunity. God has just uniquely called us into this space, and we love what he's doing. You can find us on all the socials at Greater Gathering Church. You can also follow me. I put a lot of things out on social at Tarnesha McCrary. And that's how you can stay connected. You can go to greatergatheringchurch.org to learn more about the ministry as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Pastor McCrary also owns her own business. So she is a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, an influencer in her business, very successful business. You want to share that with us as well?
Absolutely. So I do own a childcare staffing agency that's ran out of the Washington, D.C. area. So I've been running that for about 8 years. And then recently I am a licensed realtor here in South Carolina. I'm huge on real estate. The Bible talks about, Jesus said himself, do business until I come. And so I really live by that. And also this idea of Proverbs 31 woman, she was in real estate. She was in business. She was fruitful, very, very fruitful. And so that's my goal. Yeah, exactly. So I follow my grandmother. My grandmother led that way, and she had businesses, and I can't sew, y'all. That one I hadn't picked up yet, but she used to sew all the gowns, and she had businesses, and she owned multiple properties. And so here I am stepping in her footsteps as well, in that lane, and very grateful to do so. But if you want to learn more, you can certainly just follow me at Tarnesha McCrary. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the places, YouTube. Yeah, so you can follow me there.
Thank you so much. Once again, ladies, do you have any last closing remarks that you'd like to give?
This has been great because it's sharing, it's the meeting of the minds, and I just thank you for being on here once again. I love it. Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to speak with the other generation. Even though we're kind of close, you're 79, we were well grown up by then, but just to hear you confirm some of the things that we have been experiencing in our churches with the young people, letting us know that we're on the right track. We're on the right track. And for this program to be based, to be a Christ-centered program, we can reach them with our message of joy. And I think that is such a drawer. It draws people. When you talk about joy, you can't help but want to be close to that. And the joy of the Lord is our strength. So we thank you for sharing with us, and can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
So
I'm excited
much.
for the
Thank you
opportunity.
all. Thank you all very, very
Thank
much.
you. Beautiful.
The one thing that I can say, because we've been doing this for a while, this show has been the easiest discussion that we've had. It has flowed from one thing to the other, and we owe it all to you, Pastor McCrary, Lady T. Thank you so very, very, very much.
Holy
And
Spirit.
that I'm with Claudia. We can't wait to have you back.
Oh, thank you, ladies, so
Holy
much.
Spirit.
I love the name of it, The Joys. I mean, like
The
that's
joys
my
of living
favorite
great.
scripture. The joy of the Lord is my
Lord is
strength.
my
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes. Thank you,
And we
ladies.
will be back again, and we're here every third Thursday of each month. So we'll be back again in February, and we will continue to talk about the differences in how we all worship. Thank you so much, audience, for joining us live. Thank you so much for watching us on our YouTube channel, The Joys of Living Great. And thank you so much for joining our Facebook group, The Joys of Living Great, where the link is always there for you to be able to watch this repeat. Thank you again. Ladies, have a great and marvelous and joyous rest of your day.
You as well.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Ladies, be blessed.
Blessings.
Bye.
God bless you.
Thank
Be
you.
safe. God
God
bless you.
bless you.